Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Noah from PhoneDog.com, and this is the Nokia N97. Had this phone for a little while now, thanks to the folks at Nokia for sending us the review loaner. You may have seen the unboxing video, and I've been testing it out and not really holding off on doing a review, but just wanting to make sure that I kind of gave it its full due. Been talking to people I know, other tech journalists, Nokia enthusiasts, folks from the US, folks from abroad. Been talking to a few friends out of the UK. I'm just trying to really get my head around this phone as much as I can before reviewing the device. And I say that because I reviewed the Express Music 5800 pretty recently and gave it kind of a not so favorable review and caught a lot of flack from Nokia and Symbian enthusiasts. And kind of wanted to make sure, because this is the granddaddy right now, the flagship Nokia device, N97, just came out pretty recently, launched in the US first, which is interesting. $700 unlocked. It's not available on a carrier in the US. It's GSM, so it works with AT&T and T-Mobile. The 3G speeds, 3.5G as it shows up on the screen. HSDPA works on AT&T. And then it's also, it's a world phone, and will probably be picked up by a carrier overseas in Europe. But anyway, right now, $700 unlocked in the US. It's a pretty penny. And it's Nokia's first touchscreen QWERTY keyboard, or QWERTY phone rather, in the N series. And, there's a lot going on here, and I wanted to give it its fair due. And I think, for me, this device, this review kind of breaks down three ways. There's the review of this as the newest Nokia Symbian S60 flagship device. There's the review of this just as a piece of hardware on its own. And then there's kind of my look at it as a phone, from my perspective, competing against the other phones on the market. And I say all that to say, Symbian folks, Symbian fans, Nokia fans, I get it. I get it when you say to me that, Americans don't get Symbian. I don't know if it's that we don't get it or we just don't use it. It's obviously much more popular in other parts of the world, in Europe, than it is in the US. You see Symbian phones a lot on US carriers. I've used Symbian. Frankly, I was using it more a few years ago before, OSs like Android and iPhone OS and Palm Web OS, came out, and the whole touchscreen revolution came out in smartphones. I was a big fan of the E70 when it first came out. A big fan of the E71 last year. But the touchscreen experience on S60 let me down on the 5800, and it let me down on the N97, frankly. And the hardware on the N97, frankly, let me down a little bit. So I think if you're a Symbian fan and you just want the newest, best thing, and you want the touchscreen experience, and you want the QWERTY board, obviously the N97 is the way to go. If you're a Symbian fan and you want the touchscreen experience, I'd strongly consider the 5800 because it's a lot cheaper than the N97, and you're not giving up a whole lot. And I'll get more into detail in a minute. If you are just a smartphone enthusiast and you want just something new and cutting edge, you really have to think carefully about what you want out of your device. This phone can do a lot. The hardware, the specs are crazy. Symbian S60 obviously can do a ton, but when it comes to the experience of using the phone, the touchscreen optimization, the actual ease of use and that kind of thing, you're going to get arguments, and me personally, I don't think the N97 matches up with its competitors. And I'm talking HTC Touch Pro 2, I'm talking Apple iPhone 3GS, I'm talking Palm Pre, I'm talking probably the new HTC Hero as the premier Android smartphone on the market right now. I don't think it quite cuts it. I'm a little disappointed. But let's get into depth with it, the Nokia N97. Hey, after watching this video, check out the new PhoneDog.com homepage and play the One Pod Bandit for your chance to win free phones. Alright, so here you go. Nokia N97, like we said, $700 unlocked direct from Nokia. It's GSM, quad band phone, HSDPA, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, everything you could ask for spec-wise, really. It's a unique form factor for Nokia. It's a candy bar phone, full touchscreen. It's a resistive touchscreen, and then it's got the sliding mechanism with the full QWERTY board. Kind of a unique, kind of slightly involved-looking slider, reminiscent of some of the HTC devices, a little bit different. You can see it's got the specs listed out here. 32 gigs of built-in storage, which is quite impressive. 5 megapixel Carl Zeiss camera, the 3.5-inch touch display with the NHD resolution, GPS, Bluetooth 2.0, WLAN, 802.11, BG. BGN, I believe, BG, and HSDPA, USB 2.0, and the RDS enabled FM radio. On the back here, I'm just reading that for you. On the back, you've got your camera behind the cover there, 5 megapixel dual LED flash, and video capture, micro USB port on the side. You know, the whole thing, Nokia experience. So the deal with this phone, and I'll start with the hardware. I did an unboxing video, and when I did, I had some trouble with the back battery cover. And at first I thought it was just me. It's not just me. The battery cover is really poorly made. It's really disappointing. First of all, the phone is very plasticky, and it's a surprise to me because Nokia hardware, they usually knock it out of the park. The E71 last year was, I think, one of the sexiest, best built pieces of hardware in the, in any consumer electronics product that I saw last year. It felt great. It was metal. It wasn't too heavy, but it felt solid. The keyboard was great. And this device, just a little bit disappointing. It feels solid. The slider hinge feels solid, but it just feels very plasticky. And maybe they're just trying to keep weight down because it is kind of a bulky device. But I don't know. I was expecting something a little more luxurious for a top-of-the-line phone. It doesn't feel cheap per se. I don't know. I was surprised that there's not more kind of metal to it, I guess. And you could be subjective. You could say the plastic's fine, and I'd be hard-pressed to argue. But the battery cover, disappointing. A lot of the Nokia battery covers have, a latch mechanism, some kind of a little, locking latch or spring or something like that. And this one does not. I thought this was a battery cover latch at first, but it's really just to lock the phone, which is handy. Turns the phone off, turns the display back on. That's nice. But the battery cover just comes off. And in my first attempt to take it off, I broke one of the little plastic pieces, and now the battery cover doesn't quite sit flush. And granted, you're not going to take the battery cover on and off that many times, but you can see, the piece down here broke off, and it doesn't quite sit flush now when I shut it. And just really disappointing. And disappointing all the more so because so many Nokia phones are so well made and have such great battery covers in terms of that latching mechanism I was talking about. And for this one not to, just seems really silly. And, reading around some of the other reviews and talking to some other folks I know who've tried this phone out, I'm not the only one who's had this issue. So that was kind of an issue. Also, not really sure what's going on here with this, kind of reverse chin here on the back. If it's meant to make it easier to hold when you're talking on the phone, or I don't know what. But, just these bulges. The bulge for the optics for the camera, I understand. The bulge here, I don't really get. That's kind of silly to me. The second thing about the hardware that was disappointing is the QWERTY board. For a top-of-the-line device, at first I was like, why is the D-pad on the left? But, game controllers have the D-pad on the left. Some other phones I've tried have the D-pad on the left, now that I think about it. So that's not such a big deal. The QWERTY board itself, the spacebar being off-center to the right, I have no idea why they did that. I was able to sort of get used to it, but then when I went and tested other phones and came back to the N97, no idea why the spacebar is there, why it's not in the middle. Just silly to me. Also, for a phone this bulky, to have a 3-line QWERTY board is just silly to me. The keyboard's usable. The action on the keyboard is better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be really difficult to use, but actually not all that bad. But I don't know why they didn't make it a 4-row QWERTY. They gave up so much real estate to the sliding mechanism, and having the phone not, the top layer of the phone not tilt all the way up like it does in some other, similar devices. And just having the 3-row keyboard means you have to use the symbol and the function keys a lot. There's no dedicated numerical row. Not a deal breaker, but again, just, for a flagship device and the size this phone is, I don't know. It makes me scratch my head. I'm not so impressed with that. The touchscreen, it is resistive. It's not capacitive, but it actually works quite well. The accelerometer, very quick. You can see, that's impressive. The widget experience and the touchscreen experience, the widgets are kind of cool. I've got clock widget, shortcuts, Facebook widget, weather widget, Gmail widget, and then my contacts widget, and you can get into, with your contacts you click and you can get to, all your information, your different ways of contacting people. It works pretty well, and you can edit the content. So we'll click here on the weather widget, we'll remove it, and then we'll click again, and we'll add content. And so you've got a choice of, a bunch of widgets built in, Amazon, Bloomberg, High Five. So you've got different online widgets, and then you've also got internal widgets to get to, shortcuts, music player, slideshow, all that kind of stuff. So we'll go music player. And so, there you go. But the Facebook widget is nice. If you're into Facebook, it updates, and then you can click through and it'll launch your little Facebook app, which works pretty well. The Gmail widget will take me into my inbox, that kind of thing. But when you compare the user experience of this and just the way it looks and the kind of blocky, chunks of information, you compare this to the widget system on the HTC Touch, the new Touch Pro 2 and Touch Diamond 2 with the new version of TouchFlow 3D from Windows Mobile, or you compare it to the way the Palm Pre does cards, or you compare it to Android and, again, the HTC Sense UI that was just shown off, or even, some of the available widgets for Android. It's just not quite up to snuff in terms of a modern user experience. Is it functional? Yeah. Can you get your Facebook information and your Gmail information, all that? Yeah. Are Symbian fans going to say, dude, what's your problem? I can do all this stuff and it multitasks and it works and it's quick? Absolutely. But for me, compared to the other choices out there, it's hard for me to see a first-time smartphone user, choosing this experience over one of the other experiences that's just a little more, you can swipe back and forth between different screens and that kind of thing on these other devices. It's hard for me to see the Nokia kind of winning over, first-time users or just people who aren't already wed to the Symbian platform. So again, it's kind of a tale of two things. Compared to the other phones on the market, I'm disappointed. As a Symbian experience, yes, it ups the Symbian experience with touchscreen, with a perfect, it's not capacitive, but it's, as far as resistives go, it works, quite well. One of the better resistive touchscreens out there. The widget system takes the Symbian experience to, up a notch. I'm not sure compared to the 5800 why you don't have that little media bar shortcut thing. It would have seemed like a no-brainer to put on this phone since it's on the 5800, but not here, not sure why. Aside from that, the touch screen, it's not like there's a lot of touchscreen optimization here in terms of getting into the lower level or the sub-menus and the applications. It's really like the 5800, it's like S60 with some, a home screen, new home screen, and the widgets, and then, down in here it's kind of like you can click on things with your fingers, but it's not really touch optimized. It works fine, but for me it's not all that compelling. Performance, was good. Again, the QWERTY board, worked fine. One of the things about the 5800 that bothered me was that you got a dedicated menu key here, which is nice.